She said you're too jealous and I need space. Fair enough, I said and took her advice. I packed everything, blocked her everywhere and disappeared. She came home to a dark, empty apartment. She begged when she realized I was gone for real. Like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on new crazy and real life stories. If you're going to be jealous every time I go out, then you should just leave. That was what she said to me the night before her trip to Vegas. She didn't shout it. She didn't slam doors or raise her voice. She said it calmly, like someone offering a perfectly reasonable solution to a minor inconvenience. A girl's trip, she called it. A weekend away with her friends. And, as it turned out, two guys from her gym who just happened to be flying out at the same time, staying at the same hotel, planning the same kind of fun. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't try to convince her. I just looked at her and told her to enjoy her trip. I meant every word. Just not in the way she thought I did. Her suitcase was open on our bed, yawning wide like a dark mouth swallowing pieces of her life. Lace, satin, black dresses, tops I had never seen before disappeared inside one by one. I stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame, watching quietly. The room smelled like her perfume, familiar and heavy, mixed with something else, finality. "You're sure it's just Jessica and Lauren?" I asked. My voice was steady, not accusing, just confirming. She didn't even look up. For the 10th time, yes. "It's a girls' trip, Vegas. You already know the plan." I nodded slowly. I did know the plan. I also knew something else. Mark and Jake from her gym were flying out tomorrow too. Same weekend, same hotel, same city. A coincidence so neat it almost felt rehearsed. When I mentioned it, her hands paused for less than a second. Then she kept packing, her movements sharper now. "Vegas is huge, Alex. We're all adults. If we run into them, we say hi." That's it. Running into them felt inevitable, especially considering the group chat she had forgotten to close on her iPad. The one where Jake talked about how excited he was to see her. The one where Mark reacted with champagne emojis. I mentioned it casually, like I was pointing out the weather forecast. That made her turn around. Her face was a mix of disbelief and irritation, like she couldn't decide which emotion she wanted to weaponize first. "You went through my iPad. You left it on the couch." A notification popped up. I didn't dig through anything. It dug itself. I crossed my arms and leaned back against the doorway. It just feels off. A girls' trip where your two closest gym friends just happen to be there alone. No girlfriends. That dynamic doesn't feel respectful. She let out a long, dramatic sigh. The kind she used when she wanted to look like the reasonable one in the room. Her eyes rolled upward, as if she were silently asking the universe for patience. When she looked back at me, her expression wasn't angry. It was pity. And somehow, that hurt more. "This is exactly what I'm talking about," she said. "You suffocate me. The moment you hear about another guy, your mind jumps to the worst possible conclusions. You don't trust me." "This isn't about trust," I said. "It's about respect." "And how this looks," she laughed, short and humorless. "What are you, my boyfriend or my PR manager? I can't live my life worrying about your optics." She actually made air quotes with her fingers when she said the word, like it was a disease. Then she turned back to the suitcase and tossed a sheer black top inside with finality. "I need space. I need to breathe. I need to have fun without you monitoring me in my head. If you're going to be jealous every time I go out with friends, then just leave." The words hung in the air. They weren't shouted. They weren't emotional. They were delivered calmly, cleanly, like a final option on a menu. "Just leave." Something inside me went completely quiet. Not numb, not broken, just still. She mistook my silence for defeat. A small, satisfied smile appeared on her lips as she zipped the suitcase shut. The sound was loud in the quiet room, definitive. "We need this space," she said, her tone suddenly softer, almost reassuring. "Maybe while I'm gone, you'll have time to think, to realize how insecure you've been. I'll text you when I land. Try not to spiral, okay?" She rolled the suitcase past me, the wheels bumping into my foot. She didn't notice, or didn't care. At the front door, she stopped to check her reflection in the mirror. She adjusted her hair, smoothed her outfit, already glowing with the victory of the argument. Her mind was somewhere between the airport lounge and a Vegas bar, I followed her to the door. She turned, clearly expecting something. A plea. An argument. One last attempt she could dismiss. Instead, she saw nothing she recognized. "Okay," I said, my voice flat. "Enjoy your trip." The lack of emotion threw her off balance. She blinked, forced a smile, and nodded. "I will." "Bye." Alex. The door closed behind her. The silence that followed was an empty. It was full. I walked to the window and watched her load her suitcase into the rideshare. She didn't look back at the apartment. Not once. As the car pulled away, a memory surfaced without warning. 2 years earlier. Our first anniversary. We were broke. Both working entry-level jobs, counting every dollar. For months, she had been stopping in front of a pawn shop window on our walk home. Inside was an old acoustic guitar. Scratch case. Warm tone. Every time we passed it, she would smile and talk about it like it was a person she missed. I saved quietly. Skipped lunches. Took extra shifts. Delivered food late at night. When I finally gave it to her, she cried. Real tears. Hugged the guitar. Hugged me. Told me I was the only person who really saw her. I sold my own guitar to cover the last payment. It didn't matter. Her happiness was worth it. Or so I thought. Now that same guitar leaned in the corner of our bedroom, like a relic from a past life. Evidence of someone I no longer was, for someone she never truly had been. Her words echoed again in my head. Just leave. They weren't an insult anymore. They weren't a threat. They were instructions. And for the first time since she said them, I felt the faintest hint of a smile. The plan didn't come from anger. It didn't come from heartbreak either. It came from clarity. After the door closed behind her, I stood there for a long moment, listening to the quiet hum of the apartment, the distant sound of traffic outside, the refrigerator cycling on and off, the faint echo of her last words still hanging in the air. Just leave. They weren't emotional anymore. They were logistical. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. Drank it slowly. My hands weren't shaking. My thoughts weren't racing. Everything felt sharp, clean, precise. The storm I had expected never arrived. Instead, there was a strange calm, like standing in the eye of something that had already passed. Our trip wasn't a conflict. It was a conclusion. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened Instagram. I didn't have to search. Her story was already at the top of my feed. The first clip showed her at the airport bar with Jessica and Lauren. Glasses raised. Smiles wide. The caption screamed excitement. Vegas baby. No bad vibes. The narrative was already being written. I was the bad vibe. My discomfort was the villain in her story. I tapped forward. 20 minutes later. A wider shot. And there they were. Mark and Jake, 2 stools down, leaning into the frame with casual familiarity. Not running into each other. Not surprised. Together. Mark clinked his glass against hers. Jake leaned an arm over the back of Lauren's chair. She was laughing, her head tilted toward Mark. That bright laugh she used to reserve for private moments. With me, I didn't feel jealousy. I didn't feel anger. I felt confirmation. Like checking the weather app and seeing rain exactly where it had been predicted. The betrayal wasn't theoretical anymore. It was public, pixelated, hashtagged. I closed the app. I didn't block her. Not yet. Evidence had value. The love I thought I still had for her didn't break. It didn't even hurt. It simply evaporated, like something that had already been hollow for a long time. What remained was space. And inside that space, one clear directive. Follow instructions. I went to the bedroom and pulled my old duffel bag from the closet. I stacked it next to the moving boxes we had never unpacked from our last move. Leftovers from a future that never stabilized. I worked without urgency. This wasn't a frantic escape. It was an orderly exit. I started with my clothes. Every shirt. Every pair of jeans. I emptied the dresser and the closet. I left the hangers behind. I took the things that were mine, the things I had paid for, the things that carried my name. Next were the books. My books. The ones with notes scribbled inside the covers from college. The dog-eared pages. The margins full of thoughts I barely remembered writing. I took the framed photo of my parents. The small bronze sculpture my grandfather had made with his own hands. The wool blanket from my childhood bed that somehow always smelled like home. I boxed my tools. My favorite chef's knife. The expensive headphones she always borrowed and stretched out. The ones she never returned to their case. In the living room, I unplugged the television I had bought during a Black Friday sale. Wiped the dust from the back. Coiled the cables neatly. I took the game console, the controllers, the router. Especially the router. Small detail. Petty, maybe, but deeply satisfying. The modem followed. Let her figure out her own internet. I left the ugly vase her mother gave us. I left the abstract painting she bought at a flea market and insisted would be worth something one day. I left the throw pillows she loved and constantly rearranged. Anything that was ours stayed. Anything that was hers stayed. In the bathroom, I cleared my shelf. Razor, cologne, toothpaste, moisturizer. I left her half-empty bottle of expensive shampoo. The loofah. The eyelash curler sitting on the sink like something abandoned. Hours passed. The sun moved slowly across the floor, changing the color of the room as I worked. I didn't eat. I didn't listen to music. The only sounds were cardboard folding, tape tearing, the dull thud of sealed boxes hitting the floor. With every box, I felt lighter, not emotionally lighter, physically lighter, like removing a weighted vest I hadn't realized I'd been wearing for years. This apartment wasn't my home anymore. It was a stage set after the final act, and I was striking it. The last step was simple. I placed the spare key on the bare kitchen counter. I took a single sheet of printer paper and a pen. I didn't hesitate. I wrote 2 words in clean, careful handwriting. Took your advice. No signature. No apology. No explanation. Just her own words handed back without emotion. I propped the note against the key. It felt complete. I called a moving company with a 24-hour garage. An hour later, a kid with a dolly helped me load the boxes and the TV into a storage unit. I paid for 3 months up front. Then I drove across town to the only place that made sense. My older brother's apartment. He opened the door, took one look at my face and the duffel bag in my hand, and stepped aside without a question. "Couch is yours," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. He didn't ask for details. He just handed me a beer. Sitting on his couch that night, the reality of the day finally settled in. I wasn't sad. I was free. The constant pressure in my chest was gone. The invisible leash had snapped. Checked my phone once before putting it down. More Instagram stories, champagne, clubs, lights, are sandwiched between Mark and Jake, living my best life. I smiled thinly. Then I blocked her. Instagram, Facebook, every platform. After that, I blocked her number. I didn't delete it. Blocking was more deliberate. It meant I knew she would try, and I was choosing not to engage. I slept deeply. The next 3 days passed in a strange, peaceful limbo. I called my job and told them I had a family emergency. I worked remotely as a software developer, and my boss didn't ask questions. Handle it. Check in Monday. I didn't check social media. I didn't wonder what she was doing. The mental channel that had always been tuned to her was silent now. I went on long runs, ate sandwiches with my brother, watched terrible action movies. I felt like someone recovering from a long illness. Weak, but clear-headed. Grateful for the simple absence of pain. Her return flight was scheduled for Sunday evening. I imagined it vaguely, the way you imagine weather in a city you'll never visit. The plane landing, the walk through the airport, the rideshare line. At 8:17 p.m., my phone buzzed on the coffee table. Then buzzed again, and again. My brother glanced over. "You gonna answer that?" "No," I said. The buzzing stopped. A minute later, it started again. A longer vibration. A call. It went to voicemail. Then another call. I sighed and picked up the phone. An known caller. I accepted the call and put it on speaker, setting the phone back down. "Alex. Alex, are you there?" Her voice was sharp, panicked, indignant. Not the voice of someone who missed me. The voice of someone who had opened a cupboard and found it empty. "Hello. Pick up. This isn't funny." There was a rustling sound. A thump. "The power's out." "Why is the power out? And the internet is gone." "Alex, where is everything?" "My TV. You can't just do this." Silence. The voicemail beeped. The call disconnected. My brother raised an eyebrow. "Sounds dramatic." I shook my head. The phone buzzed again. A text from another unknown number. "Alex, it's me. What the hell? I came home to a dark apartment, and half my stuff is gone. This is insane. You need to call me right now." We need to talk like adults. I deleted it. 5 minutes later, another message. Seriously, I'm worried about you. This is extreme. Are you okay? Where are you staying? We can figure this out. The shift had begun, anger sliding into concern. I pictured her standing alone in the dark apartment, the absence finally becoming real. The TV gone, the router gone, the familiar presence of my things removed from the life she had curated. I went to bed. In the morning, there were more missed calls. More messages. Please call me. I'm scared. I made a mistake. The trip wasn't what you think. Mark and Jake are just friends. I'm sorry I said to leave. I didn't mean it. Please just talk to me. The word baby appeared in one of them. It felt like reading a dead language. I didn't respond. The messages didn't stop. By Monday morning, she had exhausted her own phone and moved on to other avenues. Emails, and no numbers. Even LinkedIn, which would have been funny if it hadn't been so predictable. Then she escalated. My brother's phone rang while we were eating breakfast. He glanced at the screen and frowned. It's her, he said. Or someone claiming to be her. I nodded. Let it ring. She tried again an hour later. Then again. By the afternoon, my mother called. I knew what that meant before I even answered. Hi, Mom. Alex, what's going on? She asked gently. Your girlfriend called me last night. She was crying. She said you disappeared. I took a breath. Not to calm myself. Just to slow the moment down. We broke up. There was a pause on the line. She says she came home and everything was gone. She's scared something happened to you. I'm fine. I'm staying with my brother. Another pause. Why didn't you tell us? Because it wasn't a conversation. It was a decision. I explained it simply. No drama. No exaggeration. I repeated her words exactly as she said them. Just leave. My mother sighed. I could hear the disappointment, but not directed at me. That's not something you say lightly. No, I agreed. It isn't. She didn't push further. She didn't defend her. She just told me she loved me and asked me to take care of myself. The next call came from her father. His tone was different. Defensive. Controlled. This whole thing has gone too far. Alex, relationships take compromise. You don't just walk away. I didn't walk away, I said. I followed instructions. He didn't like that answer. You're punishing her. I'm respecting her boundary. Silence. She told you to leave, didn't she? Yes. Another silence. Longer this time. I have nothing else to add, I said, and ended the call. That night, she finally got through. A new number. Different area code. I stared at the phone for a long moment before answering. Hello. Her voice cracked immediately. Alex, thank God. Please don't hang up. I stayed silent. I messed up. Okay. I said something stupid. I was stressed. Vegas was overwhelming. I didn't mean it like that. You meant it enough to say it. That's not fair. You know me. You know I didn't mean leave forever. I know exactly what you meant, I said calmly. You meant leave until you felt comfortable again. Until I learned my place, she sniffed. That's not true. It is. And it's not the first time. She started crying harder now, full sobs. The kind that used to break me instantly. I let them pass through the speaker without reacting. I came home and you were gone, she said. The apartment was empty. It felt like you died. No, I said. It felt like you told me to leave. That's different. No, it isn't. There was a long stretch of quiet. I can't afford the apartment alone, she said finally. I need help. At least until I figure things out. There it was. The practical concern. The real emergency. I won't be coming back. So that's it. She snapped suddenly, anger flashing through the tears. You're just throwing everything away, Hughes. For what? To prove a point. I didn't throw it away. I stopped carrying it alone. She was quiet. You're being cold. No. I'm being clear. Another pause. Do you feel anything at all? She asked quietly. I answered honestly. No. The call ended shortly after that. I blocked the number. That was the last time we spoke. Life didn't explode after that. It didn't dramatically reinvent itself overnight. It restarted quietly. I moved out of the storage unit and into a small one-bedroom apartment on the other side of the city. Nothing fancy, clean, quiet. Mine. I bought a cheap couch, a desk, a lamp. I didn't rush to decorate. I liked the empty space. I focused on work. Picked up a freelance contract. Spent evenings cooking simple meals and listening to music without anyone commenting on my taste. The absence of tension was addictive. 2 weeks later, I went to brunch with a woman I'd met through a mutual friend. It wasn't a date, exactly. Just coffee and conversation. She laughed easily, asked questions, didn't check her phone every 5 minutes. We talked for hours. When I went to pay, she insisted on splitting it without turning it into a power struggle. Walking out of the cafe, I felt something unfamiliar. Peace. That's when I saw her, standing on the sidewalk across the street. She looked smaller, thinner, less polished. No Vegas glow left. Her confidence seemed to have leaked out somewhere between the airport and real life. She crossed the street quickly, like she was afraid I might disappear again. Alex. I turned. Hi. She looked at the woman beside me, then back at me. So this is how it is. There was no accusation in my voice when I replied. This is just how it is. You moved on already. I moved forward. She laughed bitterly. You really don't care anymore. I thought for a moment. I care that I listened when you told me to leave. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. I could see it on her face. The realization. The moment she understood that this version of me wasn't coming back. I hope you're happy, she said quietly. I am. I meant it. She stood there for a few seconds longer, then nodded and walked away. I watched her go without regret, without triumph, just closure. Some people think strength is yelling louder. Others think it's staying. Sometimes, strength is leaving exactly when you're told to, and never looking back.